And we are live. Welcome everyone to CapitalCosm Live. And as you can see on your screen, as of yesterday, we've got a number of news items to cover. We're not just going to cover the Iran war. We're also going to cover the market open as well later tonight. We're going to keep an eye on both simultaneously. It's going to be kind of schizophrenic. We're going to look at the markets and go back to the news and vice versa, because both are changing rapidly. Oil spiked up higher today. Gold and silver spiked up higher. They look like they're correcting now. We'll see what happens throughout the night. I haven't checked the price action in the last few minutes, so because I know the Shanghai market opened since I was getting my stream ready. But go ahead and hit that like and subscribe, everyone. And before we get started, nothing in this video is financial advice, and we will have a special guest that's coming on in T-minus 2 seconds. And as you see on your screen, not 2 seconds, but very shortly here, as you see on your screen, this is the new acting supreme leader. Ayatollah Khamenei met his untimely end yesterday at his home and his compound. Him along with his family members as well. However, we have a new boss in town, and he may be a little bit more rough around the edges than the Ayatollah was. And joining me tonight to co-host, at least for the first part of the live stream, is my good friend Larry Johnson. Larry, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Danny.
So, Larry, I mean, we just looked at a picture of the new acting supreme leader. What do we know about this guy, Larry?
I really know nothing about him. So, but here's what I do know, and ask yourself, does this make sense? The one guy that for the last 37 years has been the roadblock for Iran getting a nuclear weapon, has been the guy that vetoed any attempt to build or possess a nuclear weapon, was the Ayatollah Khamenei, who we killed. So now we've killed the guy who was the main roadblock for Iran getting a nuke, and you can't rule out the possibility that this new Arafi, the Ayatollah Arafi, is going to come in and say, you know, we've been playing the fool long enough. I'm going to rescind the fatwa of Khamenei, and we now realize that for the sake of preserving and protecting the Iranian people, we must have a nuclear weapon. So everything that the United States claims to have been wanting to avoid, they've actually precipitated, kicked off.
Yeah, because Ayatollah Khamenei, although he had some things to say about the United States and Israel, but he was the one holding back nuclear proliferation on the part of Iran through a fatwa, which of course is very arguable too. Like, it's not a slam dunk. Many Muslims have actually made the argument that it's, building a nuclear weapon does not infringe upon Islam. So that's very interesting. So I'm looking at all these different reports. It looks like the news is kind of schizophrenic. And of course, this could be the fog of war, but it seems like Trump wants to talk now after saying that, the entire thing would be done in 4 days. Now it's 4 weeks. They have closed off. What's the status of the Strait of Hormuz as well? Can you comment on that? I'm just trying to figure out what's going on the chessboard.
Let's start with the Strait of Hormuz. You're going to see oil going through the roof tomorrow. It's closed. And the Iranian Revolutionary Guard has already hit three tankers, one belonging to the United States, trying to get through. So it's effectively closed. How long it will remain closed remains to be seen. Iran has the capacity with anti-ship missiles that are based on the shore that they can fire out and destroy any ship trying to get through, including U.S. naval vessels that are, warships. We got at least 2 or 3 trapped right now in the Persian Gulf, because Iran, in the course of the last 24 hours, has destroyed the naval base for the 5th Fleet in Bahrain. That base, once it's gone, no longer useful, and that puts the 5th Fleet in a bind, because now the only other nearby, let's call it nearby port, that the aircraft carrier that was apparently got shot at today, and its accompanying destroyers. The nearest port for them is Diego Garcia, which is about a 3.5 day voyage from the south shore of Iran. So that makes quite a difference, because before they were like a day and a half up to Bahrain. So this war is getting out of control. And as you mentioned, it appears that Donald Trump went to the Italians and asked the Italians to intervene with the Iranians to see if we could negotiate a ceasefire. That tells you right away the war is not going good. I mean, if we were kicking ass and taking names and crushing it, why do we want a ceasefire, man? We're winning. You don't go ask your opponent for a draw if you're up by 3 touchdowns. Okay.
And Iran rejected outright.
Oh yeah, Iran just told us to go have sexual relations with our mother. They did it in polite Farsi, but they're serious. They are not going to get played. We've played them enough. This attack was a complete betrayal of the negotiating process. Not only has it angered the Iranians, but the Russians are furious, absolutely furious, because the Russians had negotiated a deal between Iran and Israel not to attack each other. And Israel promised, oh yeah, I'll cross my heart and hope to die. And as well as Trump had vowed, okay, we're not going to do this. And now Russia's looking at this as just a complete betrayal. So this means end of the peace process as well with respect to the United States. Steve Witkoff calls up and says, hey Vlad, can I come in and see you again? We got some updates for you. Vlad will say, nope, sorry, too busy. You can go talk to somebody else. But
it's very peculiar, Larry, because you would think these guys would have more street smarts after the first time the U.S. Created a ceasefire between them and Iran during the summer of the 12-day war. It seemed like Iran actually believed that the negotiations that were ongoing as of last week, how could they be that naive, Larry? I mean, you were talking about it. It seemed very telegraphed.
Did you ever read the cartoon strip Charlie Brown growing up?
Yeah, with the football.
Okay. Yeah, Lucy and the football. Hey, Iran's Charlie Brown. What can I say? You're right. I mean, it was terribly naive, terribly stupid, and they didn't take the kind of precautions they made. I mean, Israel and the United States got a big hit. Now, I suspect what may have happened is they had sent some signals. The United States sent signals to Iran, okay, hey, we're willing to entertain this. And that's why all of these leaders were gathered together to discuss this, what they thought was going to be progress forward on the peace deal. And then the United States, this has been done repeatedly. They did it to the head of Hezbollah, Nasrallah. They lured him into a meeting at a location to discuss a ceasefire. They did it last June, and now they've done it again. And I think, once you keep burning somebody like this, I don't see how anybody sits down and trusts you anymore. And that's where I think Trump has destroyed the trust. But unlike what happened on June 13th last year, the Iranians really got knocked on their butt hard. But within 10 to 12 hours, they got up off the canvas and were punching back. This time, they jumped up off the canvas within an hour and a half, and were immediately starting to launch the attacks on Israel. And more importantly, the U.S. military bases in Abu Dhabi, in Qatar, in Kuwait, in Bahrain, and in Saudi Arabia. So this thing has now become a regional war. And now they didn't hesitate. Last time they were threatening to block the Strait of Hormuz after 12 days. This time they did it in the first 12 hours. It's closed. And that's, for your audience, that's 21% of the world's daily consumption of oil coming out of there.
And President Trump said he's not concerned about the closure of the strait.
Well, the price of oil last I checked was up to like $72, $73. This will be the only thing Vladimir Putin's happy about, because it's, Russian oil. They're going to be rolling in the cash here. It looks like China had anticipated some of this, because they were really filling up their stockpiles over the last 3 weeks. So they may have fully anticipated that this was going to be a possibility.
Yeah, in contrast with the last 12-day war, this one seems to be more heavy on the GCC side, like you mentioned. They seem to be striking the American bases in the surrounding Gulf countries. Of course, they're a lot closer than Israel is, so it's a lot lower hanging fruit. They took down a radar system that was worth $1 billion. Two of them?
One in
in
Bahrain and one in Qatar. The one in Bahrain was for the Fifth Fleet. The one in Qatar was for Al Udeid Air Force Base.
So it seems to me, and I could be wrong, but it seems to me that they're clearing the road to Israel. They're clearing out the space between them to not allow these GCC countries to intervene once they really want to unload on Israel. Is that a correct assessment, or do you see it differently?
Well, it's more to get rid of the U.S. military presence in those countries, or to significantly hamper the U.S. presence. It's where, we've already got the first 3 killed in action and 7 or 8 wounded in critical condition as a result of attacks so far. That's in the first 24 hours. So, if Trump keeps up at that rate, there's going to be some tremendous pushback from the American people, because you go back and look at what Trump promised, flat out promised. I'm not going to get you into any new wars. No more new wars. We're done with that. And now here he goes, launching a war. You may not be old enough to remember George H.W. Bush when he made his famous promise, read my lips, no new taxes. And he was coming off of a victory over Saddam Hussein in the first Gulf War back in 1990. Well, after he raised taxes, despite his verbal, he was out in public making that promise, he got destroyed in the election. That's what brought us Bill Clinton. So Trump right now, I think, has signed, I'll call it a death warrant for his presidency. You cannot betray the American people this way. No matter, it'd be one thing if Iran had actually launched an attack on us, but they didn't. Iran was negotiating, making concessions, and willing to continue to negotiate. We're the ones that set them up to, basically sucker them into a meeting, kill as many as we can, and then hope that it would collapse the regime, which it's had the exact opposite effect. It has enraged the Shia Muslim population throughout the region, particularly dangerous for Bahrain. Bahrain is 80% Shia Muslim. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, they're about 15, 20% Shia. So they don't have a majority. Bahrain does. And they are out in the streets attacking, certain buildings. Police are trying to beat them off, beat them back. And, this is going to be destabilizing. Saudi Arabia is threatening to attack Iran. Okay, if they do that, that increases the chance that Iran's going to retaliate and start lighting up the oil fields of Saudi Arabia.
It seems
Saudi Arabia. Go ahead.
No, finish your thought. I'll ask a follow-up question.
I said, Saudi Arabia's got, they got some economic problems, and so you disrupt their cash flow right now. This is going to have some very unexpected consequences on the economic front.
It seems like what they might try to gin up next is like a Sunni versus Shia civil war within the region. Do you see that being a possibility as well? Because you did mention Saudi potentially arming against Iran. And what Iran has essentially done by striking all these GCC countries is it's made them untenable for capital to flow into, because they've been the recipients of European capital that's been unhappy with the way Europe's been heading towards. Europe's become uninvestable to a lot of these European elites, and so they've moved their stations over to places like Dubai and Qatar and all these other places. this effectively, how much longer can the UAE and Qatar and all these other GCC countries that are so reliant on elite capital, how long can they withstand this onslaught until they have to give in or do something?
Well, they don't have a lot of capability to punch back. I mean, they can talk a big game, but Qatar's got no arm. They've hooked their ladder or hooked their wagon to the U.S. and now their fortunes are tied to the U.S. And Iran is in a very strong negotiating position now. So if the Saudis want to attack Iran, and particularly, or if the United States attacks any of the oil fields or refineries in Iran, they'll take out the refineries and oil fields in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, maybe Oman, maybe not, since Oman at least was an honest broker in this process. But it is going to, as you point out, it's going to disrupt international financial markets because these are not these are not some poor countries. They got literally billions, hundreds of billions of dollars floating around. But with the cutoff, with the spike in the price of oil and the cutoff in supply, which means that the price of oil is going to continue spiking upwards because there's just less out there. Again, this is going to affect inflation rates around the world. Some countries that are dependent upon that oil, it's going to affect their economic growth. So this is, I think that what Iran finally sat down and calculated was, we've tried to negotiate, we've tried to play the game, we've made concessions over and over, and we keep getting punched in the nose. So you know what? We're taking everybody down with us. Or if they come to us and say, "Oh, stop, let's stop." Okay, number one, lift the sanctions. They're going to make some demands.
It's going to be a big ask.
Yeah. So the problem the United States has is we've got a supply problem. So first, let's look at the naval assets. The destroyers provide a defensive screen for the aircraft carrier, and they do that via the 96 cells. They're, think of them like a coffin standing upright. Tube pops open, fires missiles out of it. They're like 50 on the front of the bow of the ship and 46 on the rear. Normally, if they're just in a defensive posture, all those pods or the vertical launch system cells are filled with air defense missiles, Aegis missiles. In this case, since they were going to be involved with attacks on Iran, they had 50 Tomahawks and 46 of those vertical launch system defense missiles. Once they fire them off, they have to go to a port to get reloaded. And to top it off, those Aegis missiles are in short supply. So right now they would have to go to Diego Garcia, which is about a 3.5 day voyage. You get loaded up and then, okay, we're going to go back to the fight, 3.5 days. There were reports, though, today that the Abraham Lincoln that's in the Arabian Sea was attacked. 4 cruise missiles from Iran. So we don't know if they actually hit it. There are reports that they may have hit another ship that was screening. But apparently the Abraham Lincoln is, getting out of the area because, for whatever reason, whether to repair or to get to someplace safe. So, so we got that. On the Patriot missile front, the annual production on that is, 700 to 800 a year missiles. I'm not talking the launchers. And the Israelis, if you've watched them, they've been firing, and the U.S., these bases around, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, they've been firing as well. They fire 2 Patriot missiles at it costs about $6 million apiece at an inbound missile. Well, if Iran reportedly in the first day has fired 140 missiles, so do the math. That means we fired 280 Patriot missiles. that's a third of annual production right there in one day. And let's say that pattern continues for 8-10 days. In 8 and 10 days, the United States and Israel will have exhausted the missiles for the Iron Dome and the Patriot missiles. And it's not like we got a factory where we flip a switch and they stand up and start cranking the stuff out. Not to mention that I'm pretty sure that some rare earth minerals are required in the production of those warheads. And China has put a moratorium. We're not sending you anymore because you're going to use it to build weapons, and we don't want that. So Trump is stuck. He doesn't have a good path forward here.
And it seems like things are only escalating. I mean, right now I'm looking at the news here. It says that Hezbollah has now entered the war, and they've actually struck parts of Israel. And the IDF is now looking to strike positions within Hezbollah as well. So this thing seems to be only gaining momentum here. I don't see an off ramp here. Do you see an off ramp?
No. I mean, well, there is an off ramp, and Trump blew it up. The off ramp was to say, okay, Iran is willing to make some concessions with respect to enrichment of uranium, and we can reach a deal that would guarantee Iran does not have enriched uranium and cannot build a nuclear weapon. But instead of taking that off ramp, we decided to kill the one guy that wanted to prevent Iran from getting a nuke, the Ayatollah. And we betrayed the Iranians and promises to hold talks, and we basically suckered them into it. Lulled them into saying, once again, oh yeah, we're going to talk on Monday. Have all your people get together and talk. And then we use that to try to kill them. So it's Iran now, their attitude is, the United States basically can go F itself.
Yeah.
And they're not going to negotiate.
And now it goes without saying. I mean, there obviously was discontent within Iran, but these recent actions have only unified the country, because the people there within Iran, they may not be big fans of the IRGC or the Ayatollah or the existing government there, but they also they see it for what it is. They see what's happening for what it is. It's all to them. It's that at least he's our dictator.
Well, it's not only that. I mean, this is a little bit like cops getting involved with the domestic violence call. They get called out because some husband has beaten his wife up or vice versa. And it's the most dangerous call that cops face, because you can get in there and then all of a sudden this couple that's warring with each other will suddenly unite and turn on the cop. And in fact, I've had personal experience with that. When I lived in Argentina back in 1984, we had an Argentine family living with us, and one day the husband and wife come out and announce they're getting a divorce. And I was a young guy. I stupidly said, well, I wish that wasn't happening. I'm sorry to hear it, but the woman, her name was Anna. I said, Anna, you really are a difficult, uncompromising person to live with. They both got mad at me, and they stayed married for 2 more years before they got divorced. So what has happened when we attacked Iran on Saturday, I ask Americans that are old enough to remember the emotion you felt on 9/11 in 2001, the partisan differences that existed on September 10th evaporated on September 11th. And on September 12th, America was as united as it has ever been in its history. It wasn't Republican or Democrat or independent. It was American. Now, sadly, George W. Bush pissed that unity away. But the Iranians are having the same reaction. They've been attacked. And in our attack, we killed at least 110 young schoolgirls, for God's sake. That has enraged the population. And then we've gone and killed, Grandpa Ayatollah Khamenei. He's 86 years old. And I know that we've heard Trump and them say, oh, the most evil man ever. Yeah, he's chanted death to America with good reason. Because the United States, because of our sponsorship of Saddam Hussein and his war against Iran, killed over 300,000 Iranians. That's why the Iranians chant death to America. not because they hate our freedom or they dislike our liberal policies. It's because we've killed at least 300,000 Iranians and continue to sponsor terrorist groups. Iran hasn't, the most. They talk about the number of U.S. soldiers killed in the war in Iraq. Well, number one, we shouldn't have been there. We illegally invaded the country. But number two, total death toll from these what were called EFPs, explosively formed projectiles, was 663. That's a far cry from 300,000. So if you had to go before a judge to say which country has incurred more damages from the other, I think Iran would make that court case a slam dunk.
Now, you mentioned 9/11. Here's an interesting factoid. I don't think you may or may not know this, but in the Islamic calendar, they use the lunar calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly enough, the attack that happened was on the 9th month of the Islamic calendar on the 11th day.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a very interesting coincidence. We also have a
I didn't know that.
chat. Yeah. So we have a super chat from Fuzzy Balls. He asks, thank you for the super chat, my friend. A question for Larry. How much has giving our reserves to Kiev hamstrung this current endeavor to placate Trump's ego?
Oh, significant amount. That because you go back over over the last 4 years, Russia's probably fired in excess of 20,000 missiles, and Kyiv, the Ukrainian authorities have been trying to intercept those desperately. So again, do the math. That's 40,000. Well, if we fired something like on the order of 40,000 Patriot missiles, do 800 times 40,000. I mean, so we probably haven't even fired that amount. The point is, we don't produce enough, and yet in these high threat environments where there are intense missile and drone attacks, we fire quite a bit. It's depleted the inventory, and that's part of what we're facing now with respect to trying to go after Iran.
Interesting. Well, you also have this Pakistani Grand Ayatollah who made a call to the Shia population as to this is an act of aggression against all of the Shias, and they should it's actually created a reaction to where you have now Shias in Pakistan, in Iraq, in other places attacking the U.S. embassies now. I believe in Bahrain as well. It seems like in Pakistan there was a squabble, and the Marines there stationed at the embassy fired back at the rioters trying to make their way into the embassy. So, have you seen that story? What do you make of that?
Oh yeah, no, it's the Ali Sistani, who's the grand imam in Iraq, had basically issued a threat to say, hey, if Khamenei is assassinated and murdered by the West, he would issue a fatwa for all Shia to rise up and attack the West. And I think that seems to be underway. If you watch, there's quite a bit of video footage on Telegram, and it's not. I don't think it is AI generated, but it shows literally millions of Iranians in the streets, tens of thousands in Iraq, and in several thousand in Bahrain. So big crowds are turning out, and this mourning period is going to go on for 40 days. So they ain't letting it go. And again, the thing we forget in the West, that they don't view Trump's, oh, we're going to really kill you if you don't stop. They accept martyrdom. They accept martyrdom as if that's God's will, it's God's will. So that doesn't frighten them.
And that's the way the Ayatollah wanted to go. Because I mean, like you said, he was 86. He was 86 years old. He was pretty much at the end of his life, anyways. The last thing that he wanted to do was just die on a bed or something. So it seems like you said, he just accepted his fate, wasn't hiding in a bunker, and he said, "Come get me." And it seems to have worked. It has unified the country now.
Yeah. I mean, I commented to Danny Davis yesterday. I said, look, the Ayatollah is not Jesus. Okay. It's not like, oh, you've murdered our savior and redeemer. No, he's a respected cleric, but he was not like the Pope. And that's where I think a lot of Westerners make that mistake. He was seen as the supreme leader, more spiritual than political. But remember, he's the one that set the policy. No, we're not going to build a nuke. That is a sin against God, was his rationale. And then we turn around and kill him. I mean, if our goal was really to prevent Iran from getting a nuke, we would have been sending doctors over to keep him alive, because there is a strong political movement in Iran right now that said, let's follow the Kim Jong-un style. He's got nukes. They don't bother him.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking here. Anytime you see me looking this way, guys, I'm looking at my feed here and I'm seeing it updated in real time. It says breaking news. Israel has just struck Beirut and took out 6 Hezbollah officials. So it looks like it's
well. They claim they've taken them out. That's Israel's always, oh, we killed this person. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But again, Hezbollah doesn't care. They're going to continue to attack Israel. And the Houthis, they're going to start launching their missiles again. They declared today they're closing the Red Sea. So now you've got the two, the Red Sea is now closed again for shipping. And Persian Gulf has got a bunch of ships bottled up in there. So this is where I think maybe this is the motivation that Trump, maybe Scott Bessent went in and had a chat with Trump and said, we got some real problems on the horizon now if this shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz continues, and it's going to create some real economic pressure. And, it wouldn't surprise me that it inspires more countries to start dumping U.S. treasuries. So this is, it's not even worth the risk, because one of the appeals of the United States in the past was we were considered a safe haven, that we weren't going to get involved with some stupid war that could spread.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's just so wild. Is there a way? I mean, is there a way, Larry, that this can be rolled back? What we're seeing here?
No, man. This is toothpaste is out of the tube now. So either it's got to go one of really two ways. Either the United States is going to have to try to militarily defeat Iran, which I'd argue, and Israel with it, and then I'd argue they can't do it, because the only way you do that is with the ground force. We don't have 1 million men in the army. You're going to need at least 1 million men to go invade Iran to try to control it. And that would be a year and a half process to try to even produce such a force. And all the while, Iran's not going to be sitting back doing nothing. So it's going to require the United States to make some concessions. And it's going to be embarrassing for Trump. So this is why Trump's going to lose face in this, because Iran is willing to die to protect itself. Even if we kill millions of Iranians, they're willing to die for what they believe is right. Whereas I tell you, I don't think you're going to get a bunch of Americans willing to die to send their son or daughter to Iran to fight and die there.
If you see Saudi Arabia join the fight against Iran with the United States and Israel, how will that go over with the Saudi population, as well as these other GCC countries as well? Would they be in danger of being overthrown? Or
yes.
What do you think?
Yeah, no. I think the real trouble will be out in the eastern provinces of Saudi Arabia, where the oil is produced, because we talked about they only have 20% Shia, but that's where that 20% are. They're actually in the economic nerve center of Saudi Arabia. So yeah, this has got lots of ways to go ugly, and the Saudis they're not a stable government. and MBS, in his youth and stupidity, he tried to play cute. On the one hand, he was assuring Iran, "Oh yeah, we're gonna stop those Americans from attacking you," and then on the other hand, he told them, "Hey, come on in here and get rid of these guys." That's the story that's out today. That he played the double game, and that's why Iran right now is confining its attacks though to military targets in Saudi Arabia. The media keeps trying to spin it like Iran's attacking the civilian areas, but they're not. They're going after the military targets, U.S. military targets.
Will Turkey play a role?
Diplomatically, yes. They've already issued a strong protest against this. Now we'll see. Again, with Erdogan, you never know. He'll say anything, and then is he going to back the words up with action? So far, it doesn't appear that Turkey is cooperating and allowing NATO aircraft to land there and take off there. So, but in fact, one of Turkey's concerns is the president of Israel has already said basically, once we get rid of Iran, we're going to go get rid of Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
And Turks are going, what? What? So, yeah, I mean,
I wonder what the calculus is behind that. I mean, if that is really the case, you would want to keep your mouth shut until you took care of Iran before you alerted the Turks that they were next on the list.
That would be the smart play. Yes, I agree with you. And just look it up. It
was the president. Yeah, it was the president.
Yeah, he just said it last week. And the Turks are going to go, okay, they'll take that into account. And they realize Israel's the enemy. So yeah, we got all it's like you say, we're going to put the ingredients together to bake a cake. We got all the ingredients now for a big war, a war that's going to go beyond just this missile battle between U.S. and Israel on the one hand and Iran on the other.
I saw some footage. From some Syrians over in Homs, Syria, celebrating the death of the Ayatollah. And it seems like Syria, as we know it today, is heavily influenced on the part of the West here. Will they play a role? It seems like their role is most likely in Lebanon. They'll
try to undermine Hezbollah. Again, these are Sunni Salafists that were linked to groups like Al Qaeda, ISIS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. These are radical Sunni Islamists that Iran has been fighting against for 20 plus years. In fact, when Iran, we made a big deal about how Iran was in Syria. They were in Syria to fight against the very Islamists that attacked us on 9/11. And yet, in the intervening years, we'd started providing financial support to some of those very terrorists that were at least ideologically affiliated with the groups that attacked us on 9/11. The CIA played a double game, man. Both funding and encouraging terrorists to carry out attacks on the United States, and then also using them as tools. We used them against the Russians in the Second Chechen War, and we were using them against Bashar al-Assad in the war in Syria.
So the thing with the assassination of the Ayatollah was that it appears that there was someone within the inner circle that was giving intel to the Western intelligence agencies that he was at his compound, because they would have had to be there on the site to take pictures of his body and send it back to Washington or wherever they sent it. And it would have had to be someone very close, very high up in the inner circle. Do you see? Is that the case? What is Iran doing to mitigate, the mole problem within the government?
Well, they've been. Iran does not. We portray Iran as this vicious authoritarian state, and from a counterintelligence standpoint, they're not very good. They're just not very good. Now, that is one possibility that they had a mole. Another possibility was that the reason they were gathered there, was they had received a message from Washington, and maybe even set up a phone call. Say, oh, we want to do a video, a Zoom conference with you. Gather these people together at this time and place, and we'll talk about what concessions we're willing to make on Monday. Maybe that's how they got them all in one place. You can't rule that out.
So one of the big groups that were sabotaging Iran during the 12-day war were some of the Afghan migrants. And throughout the course of the last 6 months or so, they've deported over 1 million migrants back to Afghanistan. And now it seems like there's a conflict between Pakistan and Afghanistan all of a sudden, just about a week before, or not even a week, days before the actual initial strike occurred.
Right.
What's your analysis as to what's going on in Pakistan and Afghanistan? What's the end game there? Is it connected to what's going on in Iran?
Yeah, no, I'd say so, because let's remember, India is closely aligned now with Israel as well. I mean, Modi, if you watched his trip to Israel last week, my goodness, you felt like you had to call up Netanyahu and Modi and tell them, hey, guys, get a room. Don't do this in public. It could be, I think it's part of a broader power play, because China still is aligned with Pakistan. And, while India is a key member of BRICS, the United States is working that hard to try to peel India off of BRICS. And I think, Modi's trip to Israel was really a bonehead move on his part, because particularly with this oil cutoff now, they're not going to have any incentive, for at least from the standpoint of Iran, to help out Modi. And India needs that oil. In fact, India's going to have to turn around and tell Trump, hey, screw you and your ban. We're going to have to buy from Russia.
It was only about a year ago you heard the defense minister in Pakistan say that we've been pretty much doing the CIA's dirty work now for decades. Is that still the case? Is Pakistan still heavily infiltrated by CIA or heavily influenced by CIA?
So for at least, let's see, I was 66 years. I was 5 years old at the time. The United States and CIA were working very closely with the PACs. Pakistan hosted a U-2 base, and I'm not talking about the group out of the United Kingdom. This is the U-2 spy plane, flew out of Pakistan. In fact, that's where I think Gary Powers, who was shot down over the Soviet Union back then, his flight originated out of Pakistan. And then we used Pakistan as a springboard for supporting the covert operation against the Soviets when they invaded Afghanistan in 1979. On top of that, our efforts, working through the PACs, a lot of families got wealthy off of CIA money, providing transportation and logistics, etc. So this has been, we could almost call it an incestuous relationship.
Larry, a recent poll just came out from Reuters. Now, I know a lot of people don't believe the polls, but it is what it is. They're saying that only 27% back Trump's handling of the Iran war. Does that surprise you or not?
No, not at all. I mean, you look at they've done a terrible job in the Trump administration in making a case for why we need to go to war with Iran. What is it? Well, first we were told, they've killed 30,000 protesters. We need to avenge those protesters. Then it was, no, they're building ballistic missiles that can attack the United States. No, they're supporting Hamas and Hezbollah. That's got to stop. And then we finally worked our way back. No, they're getting we got to stop them from getting a nuke. Or, someone was announcing that they're going to have it in 2 weeks. And you go, well, wait a second. We obliterated. Now, unless I don't understand the meaning of the term obliterated, that means you destroyed it every piece, so it couldn't be used again. So this is the United States failed to make the case. Trump failed to go to Congress to get the Congress to vote for it, because I think the Congress knew that it was a stinking mess. So now Trump, when this turns sour, when this goes bad, he doesn't have a good escape plan for himself. And depending on how big our losses are in terms of manpower, it very well there is a case that he could be impeached for taking the country to war without following the Constitution. Congress is the only one that can declare war. It's up to the president to execute. By working around Congress, ignoring Congress, then Trump has left himself very vulnerable. When this goes bad, all of his friends that are 100% behind him, like Lindsey Graham, you're going to see them disappear. They won't be there to defend him.
Will Europe intervene eventually? They did make headway in the narrative in their speeches. France did. They said that they will protect their skies from Iran. Is Iran going to strike France anytime soon, Larry?
No, but we saw Starmer. Starmer initially had been hesitant to offer any support to Israel and to the United States. Now they today just popped up. Hey, yeah, come use our bases. And that's one other. I look at that as one other indicator that things are not going well with this regime change attempt by the United States, because the fact that Trump is trying to get the Italians to intervene with Iran, the fact that Starmer suddenly showed up, did a 180, or as Annalena Baerbock calls it, a 360, but to now allow U.S. planes to operate out of British bases.
Will this change the calculus at all for Putin and or Ukraine moving forward?
Yes. Yeah, very much so. Putin, both Putin and then Sergei Lavrov through the foreign ministry issued what can only be called blistering statements about U.S. perfidy, betrayal, and lies. And so I can see the Russians right now saying it's a waste of time to talk to Trump. No matter what he tells you, he doesn't deliver on it. So this is, and the focus of all energy is going to be on Israel, and as Iran continues to just smack the hell out of it, and Ukraine then becomes a backwater, a news story of no longer any relevance because they're losing. Right now, the narrative is, oh, the U.S. and Israel are winning over Iran, so people want to follow that story. But the loss on Ukraine, I think, is going to accelerate, and the peace process is dead because of this. Because Trump lied and wouldn't take yes for an answer with respect to Iran.
What business would Europe have getting involved in the Iran crisis? Well, I would presume it's because of the energy aspect of it, with the Strait of Hormuz being closed off. What is it between Europe and China? That's the vast majority of ships that cross the strait.
Right.
So Europe would be would be hit big. Europe would be devastated. Is this why Europe would want to get themselves involved, or would have a vested interest?
Well, yeah, and if they did, again, the interesting fallout from that is right now military assets, intelligence resources that are devoted to Ukraine get pulled off and redirected towards Iran, which further hurts Ukraine at a time when it's under growing military pressure from the Russians. So I think we're going to see a more rapid conclusion to the war in Ukraine.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah. I think this year is the critical year for it.
How do you think
the manpower?
How do you think it
manpower? Yeah, it'll be a surrender, sort of like what happened with the Sixth Army of the German Wehrmacht around Stalingrad in February of 1942, was it? they're going to have to surrender. Or I guess it's 1943. The Odessa will be gone, Mykolaiv will be gone, back to Russia, and Russia will probably occupy Kyiv as well. So it'll be a complete vanquishment of the Iranian army, the Ukrainian army, excuse me.
Will this intensify Europe's desire to go to war with Russia? Or quell it?
Well, it may heighten the rhetoric, but they don't have the capability. You know, it's like asking somebody who's confined to a wheelchair who says, "Oh, I want to run a marathon," and you say, "Oh, well, you mean in your wheelchair?" No, I'm going to get out of the chair and run. Well, ain't going to happen. Europe is spent as a military force, and again, the economic shock that could come from shutting the Strait of Hormuz and the difficulties with international trade after that could really is going to further damage the ability of the Europeans to even take part of their existing budgets, which are a wreck, and redirect it into defense spending.
Interesting. I'm just seeing the breaking news here. Israel said that they unleashed their laser defense system on Lebanon by way of the bombs being shot over into Israeli territory. Have you heard about this laser defense system that they have going on here? This is
no.
breaking news.
Well, we'll see if it works. You know, if you got this great system that's working, then what do you need to do? You just why worry about Hezbollah if you're shooting down all the missiles? In the past, over the last 25 years, Hezbollah has fired something like 20,000 rockets into Israel, and Israel's Iron Dome has intercepted the overwhelming majority of them. Total number of Israelis until today that have been killed in those rocket attacks over that 25 years is 65. So, let's put it this way. You're more in danger of dying in a car wreck in Israel than you are from a rocket strike from Hezbollah.
Very interesting stuff. Well, I think that covers pretty much all the questions I had in store for us here, Larry. Anything you'd specifically like to talk about?
No, I'm just, I'd be like, I always watch your channel and appreciate all of the financial experts you bring on, because I think what's going on with the gold and silver market, what's going on with the oil market, what's going on with countries dumping treasuries. This is not something separate from what we're seeing with these wars. What we're looking at is the beginnings of sorry, my Rottweilers heard something. The beginnings of a realignment of the international economic and political order. And the United States is trying desperately to hang on to it, but I don't think they can.
Yeah, I've got the silver chart here. It looks like we popped open, gapped up earlier today or earlier tonight. Now it's just a little south of $93. Gold, big gap up as well at the start of the night. Hasn't declined, hasn't retraced back down nearly as much as silver has, but still higher than the close on Friday. And of course, oil, which is the big talk of town, that also gapped up. It's making it's kind of consolidating downward right now. So at $70 at the time of us speaking right now. So
yeah, you're not going to see a quick end to this war. And once there are some, I think there's some in the market that are overly optimistic that the United States and Israel have this in hand, and Iran's going to collapse any minute now. Well, when Iran is still lobbing missiles into Israel 6 weeks from now, then I think everyone's going to have quite a different take on it.
Yeah. Well, Larry, I'm going to transition over to market coverage now, but go ahead and tell us where we can find you, my friend.
I'm at sonar21.com, and you can find all my postings there as well as video appearances. And I just appreciate the time to chat about this with you. You ask good questions, and you've got a very well-informed audience.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it, Larry. Guys, check out stoner21.com. It will be linked down below once the stream is over with. Larry, thank you for coming on.
All right, my friend. We'll talk later. Bye.
Until next time. All right, guys. Let me know what you thought of the interview, guys. Did you enjoy the interview? Larry's a very well-versed guy. I had so much stuff on my mind that I wanted to talk to. But I try to cram in as much stuff as I can and get his insights. But we're going to go ahead and transition over to the markets right now. And here is the price of oil. Oil, as we saw, hit a high of $75 at the open. Now it's corrected down $5. And before we move on any further, guys, hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's boost this stream in the algorithm. There's no one else in the space that's doing these live streams like I'm doing. Geopolitics, finance. We're going all night. We're doing them, and at hours, no one else will do them. So, show some appreciation if you don't mind. Hit that like and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down below. All right. Let's go ahead and kick it off by looking at oil. Oil right now, like I said, hit a high of 75. Now retracing down. Looks like we've got a little descending wedge going on here with oil. And it looks like we're breaking on higher. This descending wedge is a bullish continuation pattern. So I want to be surprised to see, we could retest this little line back here at some point. But on the minute by minute chart, this is what it is. It looks good to move on higher, at least in the short term. On a yearly standpoint, this is how the oil price looks. On the daily candlestick standpoint, let's actually pull it up on a daily candlestick. And you'll see we've been consolidating now since 2022. And this instance here was the first 12-day war in June. Now here's the successor to that, the current war, or whatever you want to call it. So anytime we have these big flare-ups in the Middle East, oil tends to break out of this resistance line. And could this be the real deal? From an OIH standpoint, oil services standpoint, OIH has been rallying higher nonstop since for close to a year now, since April. OIH is your oil services ETF. And what's interesting about that is that it's actually been outperforming the price of oil now for close to a year. And that's usually indicative of money, smart money positioning itself ahead of the news. Now, remember, when the price moves, when the news catches up to the price, your asymmetry, a lot of your asymmetry is pretty much gone at that point. So we'll keep an eye on oil here. Like I said at the start of the show, this will be kind of a schizophrenic episode. We're going to check on the market, then go back and check on any new developments going on the battlefield in the Middle East, because this thing is just rapidly changing. And of course, both the markets and the geopolitical stuff, it's all interconnected. Whatever happens over there impacts the markets, and that's just the way it is. On the gold side of things, let's go ahead and see how we closed out the week last week at 52.79. We popped up to a high of 53.94. Now, remember, at one point, about 24 hours ago, Pax Gold, which is a crypto proxy for the gold price, actually got pretty close to hitting $5,500 when the markets were closed. Now, we popped up higher to close to $5,400, and it looks like we are. Let's do a little analysis here. Looks like we're ready to break on higher for gold as well. So, when you have these big moves up to the upside, there's got to be, there's obviously going to be profit taking, especially, when you have a big gap like this. You pretty much saw a 2.2% move in gold within a matter of a few minutes. So gold looks like it's ready to break out on the minute by minute chart. Silver. Oh man, silver. What happened here? This is a bloodbath. So we closed out last week 93.79. We popped open right here. In a matter of minutes, got as high as 96.40, a move of 2.8%. And it looks like we've been driven down lower here. So looks like you've got this thing going on with silver. And interestingly enough, when was the Shanghai Open? Shanghai Open should have been, what is it, one? So yeah, right here. So interestingly, here's the thing, guys. As soon as Shanghai opened, actually no, right here, we actually saw the silver price sell off, and then more red candlesticks. And you tie this with the information that we found out during Lunar New Year with the Shanghai price, Shanghai being offline. Both gold and silver actually saw bids up. So in a strange way, it seems like the Shanghai market now seems to be negatively impacting the metals price. Very interesting stuff. You know, I had my good friend Eric Jung on, and he talked about this. He talked about how China may not be that incentivized to see a much higher silver price. Gold is a different story. But silver is key because with silver, you've got electrification grid in China and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the Shanghai price right now, and we'll take a gander at that. And you've got 92.86 silver US spot. Shanghai popped up at 105. So that's fascinating. It looks like Shanghai popped up, but the Western spot market closed lower. So let's chart the two together. And yeah, you'll see it here, actually. Yeah, there you go. Shanghai actually pops open today at 105. Western spot diverges. Interesting development. I wasn't expecting, because I haven't actually looked at the Shanghai price yet, because as I was interviewing Larry. So you saw it here as well. This is on the this is on the 11th. Actually, no, this was Chinese New Year, right? Yeah. So pretty much went sideways. No, Chinese New Year was right here, and then you popped open higher. But yeah, guys, there's some weird stuff going on. You're now looking at a premium of 12.48% on Shanghai versus Western spot. Premium for futures price. Oh, sorry, yeah, 12.48, $12.48 premium on the silver spot market in Shanghai relative to the U.S. spot market. That comes out to a 13% premium. Futures market, pretty much the same thing. No big changes there. And it looks like, boom, looks like we're breaking out higher now on the minute-by-minute chart on silver. You see it happen as well on gold. And how is oil looking like now? Let's go ahead and pull up oil. Oil is still getting driven down, but it's still above the resistance line. So 69.64 oil. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's happening in real time. Get a glance at the news here. It says here the Islamic resistance. And we'll go back and check on the markets in a sec. We'll kind of switch between the two throughout the live stream. The Islamic resistance in Iraq. In the name of God Almighty, since today, Sunday morning, let's see, we have carried out 23 operations targeting enemy bases in Iraq and the region with dozens of suicide drones. So yeah, Iraq is lit. The GCC countries are getting lit up. Looks like Lebanon might be getting lit up. That could call upon Syria coming in next. I mean, this thing is just spiraling out of control. Zero Heads here says, let's pull it up on X. Oh, this is from the Undersecretary of War, email Michael. This is a long read. We'll read parts of it. As usual, more lies from Dario. Anthropic AI wanted from Dario, a mode AI. I don't know who that person is, but let's continue. Anthropic AI wanted language that would prevent all Department of War employees from doing a LinkedIn search. Then they wanted to stop the Department of War from using any public database that would enable us to, for example, recruit military service members or hire new employees. When I called to discuss cutting off the Department of War from using publicly available information would hurt our military readiness, Dario, a Mode, didn't have the courage to answer. Then put out another lie that no one from the Department of War reached out in Anthropic's post a few hours later. He wants to play God and make new law and really stupid laws at that. So Anthropic is known as the ethical AI, right? So looks like he would rather violate the chain of command, substitute his own policies, or those of the Anthropic Constitution and the Anthropic Soul to recruit researchers and get some downloads, all while we are in the midst of a battle. Oh, well, that's interesting. So the DOW, formerly known as the DOD, seems to be having some issues with Anthropic AI's deployment within the government. Interesting. All right, let's see what else we got here. No updates from. Let's type Iran. We'll also include Ukraine. And yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Maybe there's really not any news coming out from the Fed. But all right, so from USA Today, Iran's FA president has cast doubt on his country's participation in the 2026 World Cup following the U.S. attack on Iran on Saturday. I think that should be the least of their concerns, honestly. From DD Geopolitics, Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna can't explain where or how Iran is responsible for thousands of Americans killed. It's like a child who just learned a new word, doesn't understand what it means, but keeps repeating it in every sentence. There are people they put in government. All right. Trump news at a glance. This is from The Guardian. Congress divided on Iran attack as Trump appears to link operation to 2020 election loss. Let's go to read that. Oh, is it behind a paywall? Oh, it looks like it's behind a paywall. Is it? No. So it says here, Republican senators have defended President Trump's decision to launch a war against Iran, but some Democrats, while welcoming the elimination of the Iranian senior leadership, said the case for the attack should have been made to the American public and Congress. 3 U.S. service members have been killed so far in the military operation, and Trump appeared to link the ordering of the attack to his 2020 election loss. The U.S. president also said he was willing to speak to the remaining members of the Iranian regime after the assassination of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the country's supreme leader, was confirmed. So yeah, I guess there's a connection, or he's claiming there's a connection there to the 2020 election. And Trump linked the ordering of the attack to his 2020 election loss. So it says here, multiple U.S. outlets report that a Pentagon briefing to congressional staff directly contradicted the White House's claim of an imminent Iranian preemptive strike. On Saturday, the White House said U.S. strikes on Iran were based on intelligence showing Tehran preparing missile attacks on American bases that could cause mass casualties. But on Sunday, Pentagon officials told bipartisan congressional staff there was no immediate threat from Iran unless first provoked by Israel and no plans for unprovoked attacks on U.S. forces. Yeah, I mean, that looks pretty evident on its face. Iran was, if anything, was the complete opposite. It was just completely naive about all this stuff. It appears that they were actually taking the negotiations seriously, which is just boggles the mind, let's just say. All right, so a Dutch diplomat entering Iran via Imam Khomeini Airport in Tehran has raised eyebrows after his refusal to allow his suitcase to go through standard X-ray screening. After following diplomatic protocols, so wait, there's still flights coming in and out? The suitcase was searched by Iranian authorities, revealing Starlink devices as well as other wireless communication tools. So what's the fuss? Starlink played a central role in the recent coup attempt in Iran. Starlink terminals were used by Mossad and the CIA-backed saboteurs and terrorists to coordinate attacks on civilian infrastructure and murder civilian and authorities. Under diplomatic immunity, searching for a diplomat's belongings can only happen under extreme conditions. So this guy was pretty ballsy. I mean, he flew into a war zone first and foremost and was bringing in all these Starlink devices for spying purposes. So I wonder what happened to him. He's a diplomat, so I guess he's safe. Notable diplomatic alignment against Iran in recent hours after Great Britain, France, and the Netherlands earlier. Now a joint, you know what, we'll pull it up on X. So after Great Britain, so after the UK, France, and Germany earlier, now a joint statement from America. Guys, it's been a long week. Okay. From America, I believe this is Jordan, Saudi, Qatar, Bahrain, pass. Is that Oman? Maybe. UAE. We stand united in defense of our citizens, sovereignty, and territory, and reaffirm our right to self-defense in the face of these attacks. Nancy Mace. We continue to pray for our brave troops who put their lives on the line to stand against terrorism and the forces of evil in Iran. The Ayatollah has long funded and supported terrorism responsible for murdering Americans and countless others who simply want to live free. We will never forget their courage or their sacrifice. From Representative Nancy Mace. See another one from Zero Heads repost. So I'm assuming this guy is a UAE affiliated account. The UAE does not tolerate aggression. UAE shuts its embassy in Tehran. Ambassador withdrawn. Full diplomatic mission evacuated. Iran's missile attacks targeted UAE territory, hitting civilian areas, airports, ports, and vital infrastructure. A reckless escalation, a direct violation of sovereignty and international law. So the question is, what is the UAE going to do about it? Because it looks like they attacked the Burj Al Arab and the big Jumeirah hotel, and both of which were supposedly stationing American intelligence soldiers. I believe 6 of them or so were said to be plainclothes agents within the UAE. So that's what Iran said. That's how they justified the strikes. All right, let's see here. You know what? Let's let that load here for a sec and check back on the markets, see what oil's up to. Yeah, oil's pretty much been moving sideways now on the minute by minute chart. You know, you could draw another resistance line here. It broke out of that. So oil just consolidating now. It had a big move up on higher earlier in the start of the night, and it's not uncommon. We may even actually see this come back and close the gap before it moves on higher. That's that's how these things sometimes work as well. Let's pull up gold here. Where's gold at? 53.29. Similar pattern as to oil as well. It broke out of its consolidation, its resistance here, and now it is kind of grinding sideways for its next big move up on higher. And if you look really hard, I mean, you kind of have a like a mini little cup handle here. It's not that strong, but well, it looks like it broke down, so really wasn't that strong at all. Silver. Yep, silver's broken out. It's forming a little bull flag here. Another continuation, or you could say a descending wedge. Either of which, both are bullish consolidation patterns. So silver looks like it could go. You know, it's getting ready to go on higher here. Let's check out the bond market. See what's going on in the bond market. Let's do a line chart. And yeah, bonds are getting bid up. This is the 10-year yield. Actually, let's go back to the candlesticks. And it looks like it's, yeah, bonds are, I've got a better chart here. So this is the 10-year yield. Looks like it's breaking down from consolidation. So that's not a good sign, guys. I mean, it's not a good sign either way, but that coupled with what we're seeing now in the S&P, going on daily chart, the minute by minute chart, S&P gap down today or tonight, pre-market. Pre-market Dow Jones also down 1%. NASDAQ also down 1%. I would say, given the fact that the markets gapped down lower, gold gapped up higher, oil gapped up higher, still elevated too, and the 10-year yield going down, which effectively means that there's a bid for bonds. This is probably pricing in something, I hate to say depressionary because gold's getting a bid, but it seems to be something relating to weakness in the market as opposed to anything else. Because whenever you see a big market sell off, where does that capital flow into? Bonds. And so this is not good for the markets. There's high uncertainty here, guys, because the reason why that's a bad thing is because investors don't like uncertainty. We like certainty. I don't even think the Iranian government or the American government or any of these governments really know how this thing is going to unfold. So with that in mind, you might see an initial block into bonds because it's just the safest, and in cash equivalents too. And here's the thing. It's really tough to call whether it's going to be a depression or an inflationary melt up, because you've come to the point where you essentially started to need to price these assets in terms of gold. So it's a monetary debasement story, as my good friend Francis Hunt likes to say. And I will be having Francis on this week, so be on the lookout for that episode coming out. But it's a monetary debasement story. So as a fiat currency goes on and gets debased and loses more of its value, the cost of everything goes up. But does it go up in real terms? The answer is no. This happened in Weimar Republic. This happened in the Venezuelan stock market. This happened, all throughout history. Asset prices go up nominally, in nominal terms, but in real terms, they fall down. So here's an example of that. This is the S&P priced in gold, and this is going back to 1981. Look at that. This basically tells us we haven't made a new all-time high in the S&P priced in gold since 2000. And we've actually been in a depression, in a bear market in the S&P now. The S&P hit its local peak here right before the Ukraine war. And now you have foreseeably another, possibly even bigger conflict coming into play here. So this ratio will most likely only go down further. So with all that said, the bond market getting a bid, it's not the W we think it is. It's a sign of insecurity within investors and in the markets. Oh, interesting. Ukraine war briefing. This is from The Guardian. Starmer says Ukrainian experts will help shoot down Iranian drone attacks in the Gulf. Yeah. Starmer says Ukrainian experts will help shoot down Iranian drone attacks in the Gulf. So what's the connection here? Ukrainians help intercept drones targeting Gulf allies, UK PM says. Russian overnight missile attacks on Ukraine hit new high. What we know on day 1467 since the start of the Ukraine war. So the UK and the Ukraine, getting a little tongue-tied here. Yeah, you can't shoot down hypersonics if Iran does have hypersonics. The UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said Ukrainian experts would provide guidance on intercepting Iranian drones being launched at Gulf allies. We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region. So yeah, this is what we talked about. As this Iran war goes, it's to the detriment of Europe and the UK because that's where they get their oil from. And so if Iran's gonna close the Straits of Hormuz, and all of a sudden, Starmer, Macron, all these other European leaders, technocrats, they're screwed. So now they're having to divert resources away from the Ukraine war and into this Iran war. Sage Fool says, this is a super chat. Thank you so much for the super chat, my friend. Would Iran striking Cyprus be a catalyst to inviting Turkey into the fray? I don't think so. Turkey is doing Turkey things. Turkey is going to try to stay on the sidelines for as long as possible. And there probably is, there's factional dispute in Turkey as there is in any other country. There's factional disputes in Iran. I mean, even to this day, I'm seeing conflicting reports from Iranian officials. One guy says we're not closing off the strait. The another guy says, well, we're just going to do it. And they did. I've been keeping up with some of the headbutting in the Iranian government discourse throughout the year. And the president, Pezeshkian, did not see eye to eye was the Ayatollah. He belonged to the Reformist Party, which has a lot of wealthy, you know, elites in Iran that have their money tied up in European banks and Western banks and so forth. And so they were incentivized to see some sort of negotiated solution because that's where their capital was tied up. And then you have the other side, which is more hardline and more religious. And that was not a big deal to them. It was something transcendental. It was a transcendental movement. It extended beyond just money. And they did not see eye to eye. We could see that clearly. It's no surprise that one of the big rumors going around is actually that the West let Pezeshkian live because he would be more likely to he would be one of the forces pushing for a negotiated settlement, even to this day. Even though he did put out a tweet saying that revenge would have to be taken. So yeah, it looks like the Europeans and the British are sending over some support from Ukraine to the Middle East. Yeah, Europe is screwed if this doesn't end soon. Europe. So here's who's going to get screwed: Europe and the Gulf countries, biggest losers. Dubai, heavily reliant on elite capital, especially European elite capital that have fled Europe because of the insane policies in Europe. And so, where's that capital going to go? That's the big question, actually. Where's that capital going to go? All that capital that's pent up in the GCC. I would think one of the biggest beneficiaries would actually be the United States. So when you really think about it, this Iran war actually weakens the Europeans significantly, not just by, because of the energy dilemma and the Straits of Hormuz, but it's kind of hard to tell. It may bring capital back to London. I don't think it's going to come back to London, actually. The capital probably flow back into the United States. So all that European capital went into tax-free Dubai and tax-free UAE and all these other GCC territories and countries. I think some of it will come to the United States for sure. But one of the big attractive points investing in the UAE is because it's tax-free. America, we are not tax-free. I don't know if you know that. So it'll be interesting to watch the capital flows out of the GCC if this continues. That'll be a big story. Where does the capital flow? Let me know your thoughts, actually. Where do you think, if this doesn't end, where does the capital flow, guys? It very well may flow to the U.S. That may be the biggest beneficiary. So that's the article there. From The Guardian, Trump says likely more deaths of U.S. troops to come before Iran conflict ends. IRGC releases footage of underground drone fleet hitting U.S. bases. Underground drone fleet hitting U.S. bases. The IRGC sends a strong message. Our underground bunkers packed with attack drones are ready to strike. Yeah. I mean, who knows how deep and how vast these underground bunkers are. I don't know if you've seen the footage, but it seems like these bunkers, these facilities go on for tens of miles. I mean, they're needing to drive around in these facilities. And they're beneath huge mountains, like 10,000 plus footers. China Daily. It is unacceptable for the United States and Israel to launch strikes on Iran during the Iran-U.S. negotiations, said Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. during a phone conversation with his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, on Sunday. Wang, also a member of the political bureau of the Communist Party of China's Central Committee, said that it was also unacceptable for them to openly kill the leader of a sovereign state and encourage government transfer, adding that these actions violate international law and basic international relations. So China in particular will be one to watch to see if they get involved in some capacity, not kinetic, but in some capacity. Breaking news: the UAE withdraws its ambassador from Tehran, closes the embassy, and suspends all diplomatic relations. Iran Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed along with about 40 other senior members of the Islamic Republic regime in the U.S. Israeli strikes on Saturday. His death. So, yeah, this is extremely naive to not take further precautions. But it looks like now we've brought out the hardliners. The new leadership in Iran may not be as easygoing, let's say. Let's see. The U.S. attack on Iran will further strengthen China's ties with Russia, writes Bloomberg. It will allow Xi to secure oil supplies while Trump strikes cast doubt on the supply from the Middle East. China buys about 13.4% of its maritime oil from Iran, meaning prolonged disruptions could affect Chinese companies, the agency explains. In this regard, the agency notes that Russia and China simultaneously requested an emergency UN Security Council meeting on Iran yesterday. However, Bloomberg does not believe Beijing will escalate sharply with Washington over Iran, especially ahead of the March summit between Xi and Trump. Xi's measured style may help stabilize the summit with Trump. Such an outcome will help preserve the annual trade truce. So, yeah, there's a summit planned in April, sometime then, between U.S. and China. Oh, what is this? Oh, snap. What is this? All right. So the latest on the U.S. Israeli operation against Iran, the Israeli military said Hezbollah militants in Lebanon fired 6 rockets toward Israel early on Monday, marking the first time the group has targeted the country since the start of the joint U.S. Israeli operation against Iran. Israel said it had begun striking Hezbollah across Lebanon in response to projectile fire launch towards Israel. In a statement, the Israel Defense Force accused Hezbollah of acting on behalf of Iran and targeting Israeli civilians. Lebanon's Prime Minister Nawaf Salam posted a statement on X calling rocket fire on Israel irresponsible and suspicious, and warning against launching rockets from southern Lebanon. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has agreed to a U.S. request to use British military bases for defensive strikes on Iranian missile sites. Yes, there you go. Just in now, Hebrew Channel 12 says Iran is breaking the Geneva Convention. According to Axios, the United States and Israel intended to strike Iran on February 21st. So this has been, a week in the making, if not more. go ahead and take a look at the markets here real quick. Oil is 69. They do not want it above 70. It does not want to go above 70. Yeah, it's just been moving sideways here. Moving sideways. It's still above the last close on the weekend, $67. Silver, gold, see what they're up to. Gold, 53.47. Oh, actually moved up quite a bit since we last checked. $20 or so. Yep. You had your little descending wedge here, broke up on higher. Now it's correcting a bit. Same thing with silver, 93.74. We're pretty much where we last closed last week. And Shanghai is Shanghai keeps roaring higher. Shanghai, breaking news at $106 spot, $108 futures. Look at that. Look at that price divergence, guys. Look at that. Shanghai goes to the moon. Our spot market goes nowhere. $95. Hit that like and subscribe, everyone. If you haven't already, let's get this stream boosted in the algorithm. I'll do more of these. I have been doing more of these, but if you want, I'll keep doing more. I might even do even more than just what I've been doing. But let it be known. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All right, let's see. Looks like the news is kind of setting out here. No new updates. Let's type. Any new updates on anything? Just commentary. More commentary. Okay, so it says here support for initial military action. So this is a new poll. This is a YouGov poll taken on the 28th. So support for initial military action against each adversary in the poll taken as close as possible to the day after the action. Okay, so in 2001, we had 92% approval of taking military action on Afghanistan. In 2003, 72% overall approval. Iran, 2026, i.e., a couple days ago, 34%. So interestingly enough, America is becoming more and more of an anti-war country. So, yeah, Shanghai keeps moving higher. We'll let the market stew for a bit. Well, interestingly, the silver futures market is higher too, 94.29, although it is a bit delayed. Oh, it's from the Independent. Let's see what they have to say. Dubai's image as a safe oasis shattered by Iran revenge strikes as weaponry rained down on the UAE. This is what we were talking about. We were talking about where the capital was going to flow. And yeah, so Dubai's image as a safe oasis shattered by Iran revenge strikes as, all right, so let's see what it says. All right. Not too long of an article. The UAE sold itself to foreigners for years. Yeah, this is a big story, guys. This is a big story. This is realigning global capital. So I don't think anyone really saw this coming. But I will say, us in the United States, we may benefit from this because of the global capital shifts from not all of it, but certainly a huge chunk of it will come into the United States. And maybe even China. But that peaceful image was shattered Saturday so UAE sold itself to foreigners for years as a sunny, safe, tax-free oasis. But that peaceful image was shattered Saturday as Iranian weaponry rained down in Dubai, setting fire to a five-star resort, threatening the world's tallest building, killing one person and injuring seven others at the airport in the capital city of Abu Dhabi. Iran hit the UAE and several of its neighbors as it strikes back from the major attack by the U.S. and Israeli forces, causing fear and chaos in a place that until Saturday was predictably calm. This is Dubai's ultimate nightmare, as its very essence depended on being a safe oasis in a troubled region. There might be a way to be resilient, but there's no going back. Officials tried to reassure residents and visitors that the country's air defense system was among the best in the world, blasting down drones and missiles. So here's another thing, too, to consider. Look, people have fish brain. It all depends on how long this thing goes. If it keeps going, then yeah, Dubai is screwed. But if they're able to put a cap on this stuff, or at least the strikes on Dubai and the GCC countries, then they may be able to kind of finesse their way out of it and say, we set up these air defense systems in Iran. They're not. We'll not even waste their time trying to strike us anymore. They'll do something like that. Oh, we just bought this new dome, the Dubai Dome or something. And they'll have all sorts of goodies to reattract investors and elite capital into the fold. That's if they can get this thing under control like yesterday. If not, if this keeps going on and on, then forget about it. Singapore is a good one, actually. Yeah, it could flow to Singapore. I mean, it's pretty much the Dubai of Southeast Asia. The similar thing happened with Hong Kong. You did have all this capital station in Hong Kong that eventually left Hong Kong after the Hong Kong protests and the COVID-19 shutdowns in China. So it says, I know it's a scary time for a lot of residents. Reem Al-Hashemi, Minister of State for International Cooperation, told CNN, we don't hear these types of loud sounds, but at the same time, those are sounds of interception, and there has been damage that has been primarily debris. Fallout from the attacks has undermined the Emirates' efforts to de-escalate tensions with Iran, despite long-time suspicion of its neighborhood across the Gulf. The UAE closed its embassy in Tehran on Sunday. The oil-rich federation of 7 victims has relied on its image as a place of serenity to lure wealthy tourists, business people, and future residents who want to live largely tax-free in luxury in the desert by the sea. Nearly 90% of the estimated 11 million residents are foreigners. Yeah, that's the thing you'll notice about Dubai if you ever go there. You'll be very lucky to find like an Arab in Dubai. It's all foreigners. There's very little indigenous. It's very hard to find an indigenous person in Dubai. Let's just put it that way. Real estate firms sell glimmering high rises and poolside villas to rich Europeans and Americans by promoting a welcoming climate and business-friendly policies and touting it as one of the safest places on earth. Hundreds of drone and missile attacks later, though that reputation has been rocked. Last night was pretty surreal, said British racehorse trainer Jamie Osborne, who was in Dubai for the Emirates Super Saturday. You're standing in the paddock watching missiles get shot through the sky. The MOD, Minister of Defense, said Sunday that air defenses had dealt with 165 ballistic missiles, 2 cruise missiles, and more than 540 Iranian drones over 2 days. Well, officials said that here's what I'm talking about. They're going to say that they upgraded their missile defense system and it's like the best in the world now or something like that. And that they bought it from like Lockheed Martin or I don't know. Debris from the knockdown weapon sparkled blazes at some of Dubai's most iconic locations. So we're getting close to the end here. Okay, so we'll skip down to the end. With their current Abu Dhabi and Dubai tour over, she's less likely to return to the Emirates or the region. I would probably be inclined to avoid this part of the world when there's increased tensions or it just explodes too quickly. So, yeah, trouble in paradise. I see silver up $94. Yep. Looks good. We had a little descending wedge here, or sorry, bull flag here on gold. Ready to move higher. So more strikes on Iran. Tabriz, northwestern Iran, has been struck. Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi condemned Iran's nuclear program in a carefully worded response that avoided commenting on whether Tokyo supported Washington's strike on Tehran. What do you think? You think they're going to send missiles all the way to Japan? Explosions reported in the city of Yazd and Isfahan in central Iran. This is just in 5 minutes ago. So that's probably going to be it for tonight, guys. Let me know what you thought. Hit the like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll do more of these streams later throughout the week. We do have a solid lineup for you this week. You know what? It's actually still up in the air, so I'll keep it close to the chest for now. But if things work out the way I'm hoping to, it'll be a really solid lineup. You want to tune into the interview sections of the channel, as well as the streaming sections that we do at night. So thanks for watching, guys. I will catch you all next time.